Good afternoon and welcome to the WEM Governing Body General Session meeting. Please note that all audience audio connections are in listen-only mode. There will be an opportunity to ask verbal questions throughout the presentation. We will give you instructions on how to enter the question queue at that time. With that, I'll turn the call over to Chair Rebecca Wagner. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the WEM Governing Body meeting. And I just violated one of my rules about acronyms of the Western Energy Markets Governing Body meeting. We have a robust agenda as usual, no decisional items, but we are going to have a spotlight briefing today on scarcity pricing, and we've invited stakeholders to offer their perspective on this ongoing initiative. Near and dear to the hearts of the governing body, we will be getting an update on the EDAM onboarding and implementation, which is May 1st is right around the corner, and we're anxiously awaiting that date and looking forward to hear how the onboarding and implementation is going. We'll also get to check the box on the good news once again. Western Energy and Balanced Market Benefits and Market Performance Update. Always a colorful and cheerful presentation. Always like getting the good news. And then we'll have a briefing on hot topics, what's up and coming, and what to be looking out for. So with that, I will turn it over to our corporate secretary to do the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Wagner, and good afternoon. We'll just start there. Chair Wagner.
Here.
Vice Chair Campbell.
Here.
Member Decker.
Here.
Member Konzioka.
Here.
And Member Smith.
Here.
All present and accounted for. We have a quorum and we may move forward. Back to you, Chair Wagner.
Thank you, Roger. Next up is public comment on the consent agenda and as well as matters not on today's agenda. I'll turn this back to Roger to go through the public comment. I think we have a public comment letter.
We do have a public comment letter, but the one I'm aware of is attached to agenda item number 6.
Okay, so there's been no other.
Yeah, so there's no public comment letters otherwise that I am aware of, and then the next process here would just be seeking from Stacy, our operator, if there are any folks on the phone that want to have a comment, that want to comment, as you said, either on the consent agenda or for any other matters not on today's agenda. Stacy, can you check? It was Stacy, right? I did get the name right. Okay, good. I was hoping I didn't mess that up and you're like, who am I talking to?
No. So far, we do not have any hands raised.
And Stacy, if you could provide instructions, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's just let people know that, to how they can raise their hand. And if anyone on our meeting today is interested in a general public comment or consent agenda comment, please follow Stacy's instructions that she's about to give.
Thank you. As we do, to make a comment, please feel free to place yourself in the question queue by utilizing the raised hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host request to unmute. You'll be unmuted upon approving this request.
Give it a moment. And are there any comments showing up, Stacy?
We do not have any hands raised.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate that. And our next item, which I'll go ahead if you're not to
go ahead, Roger.
The baton. Okay,
I
don't want to be rude and overly aggressive, but I'm trying to be efficient too.
Keep going.
Agenda item number 2 is our decision on our consent agenda, which today consists solely of the December 16, 2025 general session minutes. And let me just preview this very, very briefly. As many of you may recall, the end of last year, we upgraded our process to provide for a consent agenda on all our public meetings, whether they're the Western Energy Market Governing Body General Session meetings or the Board of Governors General Session meetings. So that's why today, if you've never seen that before, that would be why. So with that, let me go ahead, unless there's, let me go ahead and seek a motion to approve today's consent agenda. And
So
can I have a
moved.
first and second on that?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, belt and suspenders there. So the motion has passed, and I'll turn that back to you, Chair Wagner, for our
Thanks,
next.
Roger. Let's move on to agenda item number 3. It's the CEO report, and I welcome Elliot Mainzer to give us a rundown on the latest and greatest.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the Western Energy Markets Governing Body. As always, it's a pleasure to be here with you today to provide an update on activity related to Western market development. I think, as you all are acutely aware, ISO staff continues to be laser focused on our May 1st go live date for the extended day ahead market. And I'm pleased to report today that we continue to make outstanding progress towards that goal. I note that back on February 4th, we held a very well-attended EDAM virtual town hall that allowed members of our executive leadership team to share important updates on a variety of EDAM-related activities, including significant governance changes, our evolving stakeholder processes, overall progress toward EDAM's May 1st launch, transmission connectivity, the general value proposition associated with a wide area Western market, as has been demonstrated by the WEM, and of course our principles and engagement plan on attendant SEAMS issues. We had more than 500 people taking part in the EDAM Town Hall, and I think it really generated some positive media coverage about the momentum behind what really is a truly pivotal moment for energy in the West. As I said at the Town Hall, we have before us an unprecedented opportunity to take advantage of the physics and economics of a wide area day-ahead and real-time electricity market under fully independent governance to drive further reliability and affordability benefits for Western electricity customers. For those of you who may have missed the EDAM Town Hall, you can actually find a link to the Town Hall at the Energy Matters blog section of our website under Recap, Town Hall. So if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to take a look. It was, I think, a very informative session. The fact, of course, that we are on the threshold of EDAM implementation reflects several years of hard and focused work. And I really want to thank everyone on the ISO team for the progress that's been made and the momentum that we've generated. I also, of course, want to thank our partners at PacifiCorp who are working so hard. And of course, they're going to be the first utility to join the new market, just as they were the first to join WEM back in 2014. At the EDAM Town Hall, we were also able to share, I think, really exciting news that we had also moved into parallel operations with PacifiCorp that same first week in February. This marked another major milestone on the way to an efficient EDAM launch. And as I said, I just really couldn't be more proud of the commitment and work from our team that got us to this point. Something that I think is also really worth noting is that we also began parallel operations in mid-February for 2 more entities that will be joining the Western Energy Imbalance market in May, PowerWatch in Montana and Black Hills Energy. So we're actually very excited to see the footprint of the WEIM continue to expand into an 11th state, South Dakota, and just great to see that continued progress. And thanks to those 2 organizations for all their collaboration. Additionally, we're also, of course, continuing to provide support to the Pathways Initiative, which recently incorporated the new regional organization for Western Energy and selected Kathleen Stacks as the interim president, Lisa Torman-Hickey as the interim secretary. This allows the ROW to move forward on important implementation work until a board and permanent executives are selected later this year. And of course, to support our efforts related to the RO, we've established an internal Pathways implementation team to drive the work necessary to prepare the ISO for Pathways Step 2 framework in alignment with California Assembly Bill 825. I also want to note that back on February 6th, we submitted a tariff amendment to support implementation of the day-ahead market enhancements and the EDM design to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. This is similar to what we did with the WEM before its launch. And informed by market simulation results and our work on implementation, we've made some revisions to the tariff language to ensure alignment with implementation design ahead of the launch. So great to see all those pieces of EDM moving so well. And of course, we'll discuss a little bit later today. I just wanted to note just another round of outstanding quarterly benefits from the WEIM. For 2025, the report showed 1.62 billion in economic benefits to market participants, bringing the cumulative to since 2014 now over $8 billion to 8.24 billion. And as we noted in the report and in our news release, we did take some additional time to post this quarterly report because with all the significant changes in resources and operational dynamics across the West, we wanted to work closely with our WM partners to refine the benefits methodology and to help ensure that its logic remains robust, transparent, and reflective of current operating conditions. And for those seeking more information, we made the updated methodology document available on the WEM website. And of course, we'll hear more about that today. But again, just want to be very transparent about that. But again, really remarkable economic benefits in addition to all the reliability. Finally, I just wanted to note that late last month, at its monthly meeting, FERC issued its final order on the WEC soft price cap. The WEC soft price cap applies to bilateral spot trades in the Western Electricity Coordinating Council footprint, but does not apply to trades cleared in the CAISO operated markets. The CAISO had submitted comments requesting additional process to evaluate potential impacts of repealing the longstanding WEC soft price cap. But at the end of the day, FERC acknowledged these comments, but unanimously affirmed its initial proposal. We're going to continue to assess whether this action may have any indirect impacts on the markets we operate. Centralized markets such as ours, as you know, use price indices that reflect bilateral spot market prices as inputs to certain market procedures. But I do think we believe that robust market monitoring and market power mitigation protocols should mitigate the risk of unjust prices. And we will, of course, continue, along with DMM and others, to closely monitor market behavior as this change takes place. So just wanted to make sure that was on everybody's screen as an important decision. So with that will conclude my report. So much going on. Thanks, as always, to the governing body and to all of our stakeholders for all the support. And it's going to be all hands on deck right through May for EDAM Go Live. But what an exciting moment. And thanks again to everybody that's working so hard to make that happen. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Elliot. Any quick questions from the governing body for Elliot? Thank you, Elliot. Appreciate the update.
Of course, thank you.
Next, we'll turn to an update from the body of state regulators. With us is the BOSSER chair, Commissioner Gabriel Aguilera from the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. There you are. I see you on my screen now. Welcome, and I'll turn it over to you for an update.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the Western Energy Markets governing body. Good to see you, and thank you for the opportunity to provide an update to you today on behalf of the body of state regulators. So I'll start by updating you on the BOSSER's meetings already held in 2026. At our January meeting, the BOSSER received an overview from CAISO staff on this year's policy catalog roadmap process. While the BOSSER is not submitting any new initiatives for consideration this year, we will follow the catalog and roadmap process and provide comments and input on the proposed initiative and draft roadmap where appropriate. So at that same January meeting, the BOSSER heard from RIF Chair Lindsay Schleckaway and Secretary Vijay Singh on the RIF's enhancement project. It was informative to hear how the RIF sees itself evolving under the current governance structure and its preparations to transition to the Stakeholder Representatives Committee under the regional organization for Western Energy. At our February meeting, we invited one of CAISO staff, Guillermo Batista Alderete, to provide members with a briefing on the details of the EDAM benefit calculation methodology. Given the regional benefits already generated by the WEIM, we very much look forward to seeing the reporting of additional benefits that EDAM will bring to ratepayers across the market footprint. So moving forward to the rest of the year, the Bossers' focus this year will remain on some of the same topics that we engaged with last year. This includes preparations for EDAM Go Live and policy initiatives that will shape the evolution of the Western energy markets designs. With EDAM now entering parallel operations, the region has reached an important implementation milestone that reflects sustained coordination among stakeholders and steady progress toward operational readiness. The Bosser will also remain actively engaged in the ROSE development this year. At our most recent meeting, Stacy Crowley of the ISO briefed members on the ROSE Startup Funding Initiative that's currently underway at CAISO. 3 Bosser members will continue to serve as liaisons to the Pathways Formation Committee, helping to support coordination during this foundational phase. In addition to that, Bosser is participating in the ROE nominating committee process and looks forward to contributing to the selection of new board members. Bosser is also actively participating in the WM nominating committee process for the governing body. So finally, I want to note that the Bosser is interested in developments related to market seams as they emerge, recognizing that the operational and governance interfaces between EDAM and neighboring balancing authority areas will play a meaningful role in shaping outcomes. So one final update is that our next meeting is on March 13. And that is all I have for you today. So on behalf of the body of state regulators, thank you for your time. I am happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Chair Aguilera. Governing body, any questions? I am not seeing any. Thank you for the update and look forward to another year of working with you.
Me too. Thank you.
Next up, we have the Regional Issues Forum update. We have the Lindsay Schleckaway is the Market Policy Director for NV Energy and is the RIF Chair, and she is here to provide us with an update on RIF activities. Take it away, Lindsay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the governing body. Thank you for inviting me to share an update from the Western Energy Markets Regional Issues Forum. Since my last update at the December 16th Western Energy Markets Governing Body meeting, the RIF has continued to focus on advancing the RIF Enhancements Project. The liaisons reviewed feedback from the Pathway Launch Committee, as well as comments from 9 members on our draft final proposal. To refine the proposal, the liaisons met in focused work groups to develop the remaining details, including a high-level implementation timeline for each enhancement. Over the past few months, we have collaborated closely with CAISO staff and the Pathways leadership team to develop a final proposal, which the liaisons will present in our upcoming March 16th meeting in Folsom, California. In addition to finalizing the RIF enhancements, significant preparation has gone into planning the March meeting. The meeting will begin with the annual policy initiatives catalog and roadmap roundtable discussion. During this session, each RIF sector will outline its priorities for the CAISO policy initiative process, followed by an open stakeholder discussion on topic and prioritization. Following the roundtable discussion, the RIF will present our final proposal for the RIF enhancements, which will include the implementation timeline and efforts that are currently underway. To conclude the meeting, members from the EDAM entity sector will provide an update on the ongoing efforts that are taking place to develop a new resource adequacy program under the EDAM market construct. This briefing will offer participants an opportunity to learn about the initiative and to engage directly with those involved. And this concludes my regional issues forum update. Thank you for your time. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thanks, Lindsay. Questions or comments from the governing body? Seeing none, thank you for joining us, Lindsay, and we look forward to the RIF meeting, both in person and online on March 16th at 1 p.m. in Folsom and obviously virtually. It's a great agenda. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to turn to our next agenda item. Going down into the weeds. We've been gliding a little bit, and now we're going into the weeds. I want to check with Roger to confirm that there are no additional public comment letters before I introduce Allie.
Thank you. We do have a public comment letter for agenda item number 6 for the spotlight briefing, and that was received from CESA, California Energy Storage Alliance, and that has been provided to the governing body for, according to our protocol.
Thank you, Roger. We have Allie Mace, Senior Advisor of Regional Stakeholder Affairs. You're going to tee this up, and then followed by a presentation by James Friedrich. And then we have a host of market participants offering their perspective. So I hopefully didn't just take away what you're about to say, but Allie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I only stole a little bit of it. You'll hear it again. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the governing body. I'm excited to be here today to introduce the Price Formation Enhancement Spotlight and to introduce the stakeholder presenters. We will be starting today's spotlight with a brief presentation by myself on stakeholder engagement, and then by James Friedrich, who will provide an update on the evolution of the scarcity pricing portion of the Price Formation Enhancements Initiative since our last update to you in October 2025. We will then hear from 4 regional stakeholders sharing their views on scarcity pricing and the path forward. Our intent with the presentation today is to share insight with you into the diverse perspectives of our stakeholder community on this topic. So to begin with, I want to give you a little bit of an overview on where we've been on stakeholder engagement and input. So the Price Formation Enhancements Initiative Phase 2, which this is a part of, was launched in November 2024. We've had stakeholders who have been very engaged throughout the working group process, and we very much appreciate all of their engagement and input. We've held 17 stakeholder meetings with an average attendance of 109 attendees at each meeting. Stakeholders have led 3 presentations at these working group sessions and submitted 97 sets of comments to us. Stakeholders, as I said, have been really heavily engaged throughout this process. That's all of our speakers today. And we would also like to acknowledge and thank everyone who's participated to steer the direction of the policy and contribute their expertise to the working group. And now let's go to the next slide, and I will hand it to James Friedrich for a brief update on the initiative.
Okay, thank you, Allie, and good afternoon, Chair Wagner and members of the governing body. So the conversation on scarcity pricing has evolved significantly since our last update in October. Following that meeting and in response to mixed stakeholder feedback regarding the timing of future scarcity pricing reforms, we held 2 working group sessions in November. In these meetings, the working group considered the idea of pursuing 2 parallel tracks for scarcity pricing. Track 1 would focus on the BAA level mitigation and incremental scarcity pricing rules originally in the August 2025 straw proposal. And track 2 would be a longer term effort to design a comprehensive scarcity pricing mechanism. During these meetings, we prepared some high level technical questions to guide the working group through thinking about the two most popular mechanisms. The first being a more traditional approach that utilizes reserve demand curves, and the second being a newer approach based on what you might hear called the energy supply margin that does not rely directly on reserves. We also received technical guidance from our Market Surveillance Committee in January. Dr. Bushnell suggested that increasing market penalty values could be an additional incremental step to take on our way to a comprehensive design, while Dr. Harvey challenged the group to think about how a new longer-term reserve product in the real-time market might improve market efficiency and how foundational improvements to reserve modeling may be a necessary prerequisite for effective scarcity pricing. Next slide, please. So based on these meetings and hundreds of pages of comments, as Ali mentioned, I want to offer the governing body 4 central questions that have emerged through the working group. First is, should we start to develop better scarcity pricing now, or should we wait for post-EDAM data? We have 4 presenters today who we've asked to offer their perspectives on this specific question, but you might also hear snippets of questions 2 through 4 in their presentations. Also, I'd like to add from observations made by the MSC in January, we might add some additional questions like, are there foundational market design improvements that we should make as necessary prerequisites to effective scarcity pricing? And are there additional incremental steps that can be taken to improve the status quo without a comprehensive redesign? Question 2, does reliability require scarcity price signals, or is resource efficiency enough? This question is getting at whether scarcity pricing is a suitable complement to robust long-term capacity planning, and how to design scarcity pricing so they reinforce each other rather than undermine each other. Question 3, to what extent does scarcity pricing remain necessary as demand-side participation in wholesale markets grows and matures? The traditional case for scarcity pricing rests on a fundamental assumption about electricity markets that demand is inelastic, which means that it does not change much in response to prices. And so the supply side has to do all the adjusting. But with more price responsive loads, you now have demand that may willingly economically curtail at certain prices. So is scarcity pricing a complementary or competing mechanism in such a world? And finally, how do we ensure that scarcity price signals apply symmetrically across the EDAM, the entire EDAM and WEIM footprint? Thanks, Ali. I'll pass it back to you to introduce our speakers today.
Great, thanks, James. Now, as we've mentioned, we have invited 4 stakeholders to join the spotlight today to speak to their perspective, and we asked them to speak to something very specific, to speak to their perspective regarding the urgency or lack thereof of comprehensive scarcity pricing reform, and how they view the interaction between these potential reforms and the upcoming EDAM implementation. Before we launch into the presentations, I want to extend a huge thanks to our presenters for being willing to share their time and perspective today. So I'll introduce each presenter as we go, but we are going to begin with Bonnie Blair, Senior Counsel at Thompson Coburn on behalf of the 6 cities. Let's go to the next slide for Bonnie.
Good afternoon, governing body members, CAISO representatives, and other stakeholders. As Ali mentioned, my name is Bonnie Blair. I'm an attorney, and my normal role is representing the 6 cities group in stakeholder activities, among other ways. But today I'm wearing a bigger hat, or a broader hat, or covering a broader group. The sponsors of my presentation are listed on the cover page and on the back page of the presentation, and they include load-serving entities that serve, I think it is fair to say, almost all of the load in the CAISO balancing authority area. So that group feels strongly that this is not the time to embark on an effort to redesign scarcity pricing. That's the key point that the presentation goes to. If scarcity pricing is considered, and we do acknowledge and agree that a well-designed scarcity pricing mechanism is important to an effective market design, but the scarcity pricing mechanism should reflect the market that we're dealing with, and the market that we're dealing with is evolving very rapidly. And we think that consideration of comprehensive scarcity pricing design should wait until we've had an initial implementation and an initial period of experience with the extended day-ahead market and the day-ahead market enhancements that are about to launch in less than 2 months now. I think it's fair to say that the day-ahead market enhancements and EDAM are the most sweeping change in market design since the MRTU market became effective in 2009. It's broad, the footprint is expanding significantly, and it's expanding in complexity. And to attempt to foresee exactly how that market is going to work is not a worthwhile exercise in the view of the participants sponsoring this presentation. Waiting until we have had an initial period of EDAM operation and gathering data and using the experience that we gain will reduce the risk of unintended consequences. I'm sorry, could you advance slides? I forgot to ask. There we go. That's where I am. It'll reduce the risk of unintended consequences, including potential interference with the effectiveness of EDAM. It will enable additional data under the new revised market rules to inform the policy changes, and it will enable the best and most efficient use of stakeholder and CAISO resources during that initial period of EDAM operations. The sponsoring group, the Joint California LSEs, support moving forward with the incremental improvements to scarcity pricing identified and agreed on in the CAISO straw proposal. Next slide, please. This slide really summarizes and elaborates a bit on the reasons why we believe that it's premature to embark on a comprehensive redesign of scarcity pricing mechanism. The scarcity pricing mechanism or a scarcity pricing mechanism based on ancillary services would be limited to the CAISO balancing authority area because under the EDAM design, at least initially, the CAISO will procure ancillary services only for its own BAA. The other participating EDAM BAAs will be responsible for procuring their own ancillary services. Co-optimization of ancillary services and energy procurement is important to minimize differences in the market scope and the potential for inconsistent pricing signals. Further changes to the reserve demand curve would not be appropriate at this time because ancillary services are not co-optimized across the regional footprint and will not be during the initial period of EDAM operations. Similarly, new reserve products shouldn't be introduced until the impacts of the new imbalance reserve products, which are being launched under the EDAM and the day-ahead market enhancements, are understood. The sponsoring group believes that there is no urgency about engaging in an effort to comprehensively redesign scarcity pricing. There are scarcity pricing measures in the market already that was recognized in an art or in a comparative review of reserve and energy scarcity pricing in the U.S. In a 2023 paper that was co-authored by Dr. Benjamin Hobbs of the Market Surveillance Committee, as well as two other authors. In addition, the bids for imports into CAISO can rise to as high as $2,000 per megawatt hour when prices are high in the Western markets generally. And that's recognized in FERC's recent order on the WEC soft offer cap at paragraph 3. We believe that it's unnecessary to encourage new resource investment. And California Resources Adequacy Program provides capacity payments that support generation development. And currently, perhaps the biggest problem with bringing new resources online is the size of the interconnection queue that the CAISO has to manage and get through in order to bring new resources online. In addition, the EDAM is expected to provide significant reliability benefits to the EDAM participants and to the CAISO BAA. Next slide, please. So these are our recommended next steps. The sponsoring group encourages the CAISO and to move forward with finalizing the incremental scarcity pricing measures that were set forth in the straw proposal. There were some requests for additional data, and the focus should be on assembling the data requested and refining the elements of the straw proposal. The sponsoring group does not believe that scarcity pricing reform is a necessary prerequisite for market power mitigation changes, and we support the grouping of BAAs for market power mitigation. We urge the CAISO to postpone discussion of additional comprehensive scarcity pricing reform until EDAM and the day-ahead market enhancements have been implemented, and we have gained an experience with the new and the redesigned products, the new market elements, and the new market dynamics. This will allow for more informed discussion. We'll have additional data to work with, and the wait, observe, and learn approach represents the most productive use of CAISO and stakeholder resources, given the level of activities going on in 2026 and the demands on the resources of both the CAISO and the stakeholders participating in the markets. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Bonnie. And now we will move on to our next presenter, Chris Devon, the Director of Government and Regular Affairs at Calpine. And Chris will just be speaking with verbal comments, so we'll keep it on this slide. Thank you.
Hey, Allie, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the governing body, CAISO staff, and fellow stakeholders. I'm Chris Devon, representing Calpine and our new owner, Constellation Energy. Calpine supports moving forward with scarcity pricing and BAA level market power mitigation together, but not one after the other. First, on price formation, we believe a well-designed scarcity pricing framework should raise prices gradually as supply conditions tighten. That kind of forward signal encourages both supply and demand side responses, including EDAM and WEIM transfers before reliability is at risk. The current approach, where prices only jump once a shortage exists, comes too late to actually influence supply and demand behavior. We do understand CAISO's unbending commitment of resources to the implementation of EDAM and day-ahead market enhancements. We're only weeks away from what might be a momentous go-live coming here in May of 2026. We wish CAISO good fortune and an uneventful transition. But soon thereafter, we ask that CAISO refocus and redouble its efforts to evaluate and propose a more robust scarcity pricing design, with the goal of having it in place by fall of 2027 or spring of 2028. Calpine strongly believes that there is not sufficient concern to wait for an extended period of post-EDAM data to continue to work on scarcity pricing. CAISO and market participants already understand the operational need and the design principles. Delaying the work risks keeping the footprint reliant on the very out-of-market actions that day-ahead market enhancements was meant to reduce. We also provide our view that scarcity pricing is helpful to provide incentives to perform planned maintenance so that assets can be available to meet reliability needs in tight conditions. Scarcity pricing can also support demand flexibility. When prices rise more gradually as conditions tighten, flexible loads and programs can have a chance to respond earlier. This helps reduce peak stress and lowers the need for emergency interventions. Calpine also believes that scarcity pricing should be implemented at the same time as BAA level market power mitigation. If CAISO does not coordinate both, it risks suppressing prices in the very hours where scarcity pricing is meant to lift them. Implementing these efforts together ensures that prices will reflect actual system conditions and provide more response prior to entering emergency conditions. We also continue to support the Market Surveillance Committee's recommendation to use conduct and impact market power tests. Conduct and impact tests can focus mitigation only where offers cause real price distortion, allowing competitive bids to set prices while avoiding over-mitigation in tight hours. We support this approach because it targets mitigation at actual harmful market power behavior, not simply based on the size of the supplier. So, in summary, Calpine believes that impactful scarcity pricing and BAA level market power mitigation must go forward together. We urge CAISO to implement EDAM and DAME and then move quickly to advance these initiatives. Thank you for the opportunity to share our perspective.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate you sharing your perspective. All right, next we will be joined by Kalia Savage, the Principal Markets and Policy Analyst with Portland General Electric. Thank you, Kalia, for joining, and thank you.
Perfect. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, members of the governing body, CAISO staff, and fellow stakeholders. My name is Kalia Savage, and I am speaking on behalf of Portland General Electric regarding CAISO's Price Formation Enhancements Initiative. Next slide. I want to start by being very clear about PGE's position. PGE supports the policy objective of improving price formation, including scarcity pricing. Accurate price signals matter for reliability, operational incentives, and long-term investment decisions. This is not a new position for PGE or other EIM entities. In joint comments filed back in November, the Balancing Authority of Northern California, Idaho Power, Pacific Corp, PGE, and Public Services of New Mexico recommended that comprehensive scarcity pricing reforms be sequenced after EDAM and DAME reach operational maturity. The issue before us is not whether this work is important. We agree that it is. The issue is timing. EDAM represents a foundational market change, and several interdependent elements of day-ahead and real-time coordination remain under development. Consistent with our filed comments, PGE supports Track 1, which was the incremental scarcity pricing improvements and BAA level market power mitigation in the near term, but believe a comprehensive scarcity pricing redesign, as noted in Track 2, should wait until EDAM has demonstrated stable, real-world performance. Next slide. EDAM is a foundational market change for the West. It is fundamentally alters how the day ahead and real-time markets interact, how transfers are scheduled, and how price formation works across BAAs. In our filed comments, we cautioned against introducing a major price formation redesign while EDM and DAME are still being implemented. Several interdependent elements remain in flux today, including EDM and DAME scheduling and transfers, interchange modeling, BAA level coordination, and market power mitigation. Without real operational experience, it's not yet possible to reliably assess how a new scarcity pricing construct would interact with these changes. Moving forward now risks designing scarcity pricing in an environment of uncertainty, which increases implementation risk and the likelihood that reforms would need to be revisited once EDM's real-world performance is understood. Next slide. PGE's recommendation is straightforward and consistent with our filed comments. In the near term, the region should prioritize EDM go-live and market stability for PGE, Pacific Corp, and other participants. CAISO and stakeholder resources are finite, and they are already fully committed to ensuring a successful transition. During this period, PGE supports limited incremental improvements to scarcity pricing. The examples on this slide are of the types of targeted incremental improvements stakeholders have discussed, not a comprehensive redesign and not a final scope. In the next phase, once EDM has demonstrated consistent operational performance, the region will be in a much stronger position to revisit scarcity pricing enhancements. At that point, reforms can be informed by real-world EDM experience, not pre-implementation assumptions. This sequencing minimizes implementation risk, supports EDM onboarding, and ultimately leads to stronger, more credible price formation outcomes for the West. So in short, PGE supports improving scarcity pricing, but believes the prudent course is to implement targeted scarcity enhancements now, stabilize EDM, and gather operational data to inform disciplined sequencing after EDM maturity, which will best serve reliability, market confidence, and the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalia. Finally, we're going to wrap up with a presentation by Sybil Gieselman, Market Policy Advisor for the Public Generating Pool. Thank you for joining us, Sybil.
Thank you for having me. Hello, governing body, CAISO staff and board and stakeholders. Again, my name is Sybil Gieselman. I'm here representing the Public Generating Pool. Our interest in the Price Formation Enhancements Initiative is that we're a subset of Northwest Publics who own and operate their own generation, which is primarily hydro, purchase a large portion of EPA's Tier 1 power. So we participate as load-serving entities in Bonneville's balancing authority. We have a couple of EIM entities, and then we also have a number of members who are non-participating BAs. We think that price formation enhancements is a really important initiative and have followed it closely over its long engagement period. And the reason why is that the regional backdrop is evolving, and so tools for managing emergency conditions need to evolve too. We have extreme weather and climate change, which is driving increased risk for extreme conditions. As James noted, large loads and electrification give us some evolving opportunities for demand side management, which need to be considered in pricing mechanisms. Challenges with resource and transmission development really do drive the need to maximize operational efficiency, and we do think that there's urgency here. And then, as noted, we have new and evolving markets and themes, which can drive external impacts that need to be carefully considered. I'll also note that the historical discussion on price formation during tight conditions also highlighted issues around the interaction of the CAISO as the market operator versus the BA. And we really think that it's time for solutions that apply to all participating BAs and really embrace our regional market direction. PGP, particularly with our hydro resources, are also really interested in market power mitigation reform and think that it's important, and the changes in that space should not be delayed. Next slide, please. So again, we've engaged on this initiative for some time now and really think that there has been a lot of progress made. The stakeholders have articulated what the most urgent concerns are, and we've discussed these extensively. I think there's actually quite a bit of alignment here, as you saw from other stakeholders. Price formation during emergency actions, and this, I'll note, does not mean just the CAISO, again, embracing that equity question that James raised at the beginning. Better and broader definition of how we define these conditions under our unique Western construct. And again, also those warning signals that Chris alluded to there. Properly incentivizing supply and demand side performance when critical for reliability. So again, that piece of the growing opportunities on the demand side and some challenging examples that we've seen in the past of maybe counterintuitive pricing behavior in the market that are important to address and really drove some of the initial conversations. And aligned with that, improving transparency around expected market behavior, which will help participants to be incentivized to participate effectively in the markets. We also think that there were a lot of concepts that were explored thoroughly and can point us in a direction. We discussed new ancillary service products for the CAISO, but this raised some equity issues and also the complex implementation challenges that were raised by other stakeholders. So I think that we need to find something simple to implement that is applied more broadly than just impacting the CAISO VA. We did discuss the use of the value of the loss of load concept, and that was determined to be challenging to establish, also raised some equity issues. We need something that's clear and consistent, then improve on existing frameworks. We're not going to bring something in out of left field. And then some scarcity limitations. We did discuss the duration and impact should send the correct incentives, but not cause harm when all the tools have been used up. So, you know, taking some lessons learned from other markets. And this indicates that we should be correcting known issues with the signal for short duration events first and improving on tools and performance incentives based on what we have today. Next slide, please. So our recommended path based on all of these discussions that we've had today is that we need to accept that we explored standard design, and by that I mean an ORDC concept that applies to the ancillary services procured through the market, which would only apply to the CAISO. We determined that it won't work for our unique Western day ahead and Western energy imbalance markets. It's poor timing to implement a complex change like this, and it doesn't align with the broader direction of the market, but we do think there's urgency here. We think, like other stakeholders, we need to refine and go ahead and implement some of the changes proposed in the straw proposal, which will lock in some progress, and these will also help to support a future more comprehensive design, maybe something that looks more like this VA supply margin concept that's been floated. We think that also noting improving market power mitigation, moving forward with that is foundational and important. So we think that we need to expand on the conditions considered in the straw proposal for how we define these emergency actions. They need to be defined broadly across the footprint, which requires some additional work on the part of stakeholders. We need to think about how these are triggered and communicated, again, addressing that transparency issue, especially if post-market pricing is required. Again, there's implementation challenges. We did discuss some of the trade-offs associated with in-market versus out-of-market settlement at this point. We want to make sure that we do address that concept of warning signals. Again, pricing leading up to events so that we're incentivizing that optimal use of the system. Want to make sure these prices last through the duration of the event or until the tools are used up, as noted. And that's really important when we think about that growing demand side piece of the equation as well. I think there's a key question here again about that implementation of post-market versus within market, just because of those complex implementation trade-offs that we have to address, and recognizing all of the other efforts that are going on and changes as noted by other stakeholders here. And then one thing that we haven't discussed too much in the group, but I think arises when we get into something that's simpler and more directly linked to emergency actions, is how this links to the Energy Assistance Program and resource sufficiency evaluation. I think James also raised that in his questions. So we do think there's more dialogue to be had to refine the straw proposal to make it implementable, but that we've made a lot of progress as stakeholders, and we need to embrace our continuous improvement model that works for the West and get something in place now that will help us to define something broader and able to be implemented at a later date. Thanks for having me today. Look forward to further discussions on this topic.
Thank you, Sybil. All right, we are going to turn it back over to James to wrap things up and handle questions.
Sure, and I'll be brief. We really appreciate the input of all stakeholders, both for the group of 4 that came today, but also for the many, many that are engaged in the Price Formation Enhancements Working Group. And as we've heard, there are a wide array of perspectives and interests on this topic. And we're eager to move forward on these reforms, and we'll be continuing to absorb the feedback we've received and continue to receive both from stakeholders and from the Market Surveillance Committee. And we'll work towards finding a path forward to design and sequence these reforms to improve our price formation and market design. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James. Allie, does this conclude the presentation portion? Should I turn to questions?
Yes, you should. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your interest and attention, and a huge thanks again to our stakeholders for stepping up to present and share their perspectives today. I hope that's been informative and helpful. So we'll turn now to you for questions.
Thanks, Allie. And before I turn it to governing body for questions, I just want to amplify the comments that you made, thanking the presenters and stakeholders. Clearly, you're all very busy. We know what the initiative's schedule is like for the ISO, and I'm certain this is just a portion of your day job. So thank you very much. The perspectives are really helpful, especially hearing them live and in your words. I guess it animates written comments, and it's helpful and informative. So really appreciate the time on that. Governing body members, any comments, questions, or discussion on this? Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair Wagner. I have a question or two. When I found this format to be very helpful, I mean, this is an issue where there's been a lot of stakeholder discussion, a lot of comments filed, and as a governing body member, I can't really track all of that very practically. So having this real focused conversation and seeing where the discussion is now, I found very valuable. I guess one question is why, and this could be to staff or to some of the stakeholders that presented, but why is or isn't comprehensive scarcity pricing needed for reliability or cost management during tight conditions? I guess that's kind of like one of the key questions I'm wrestling with.
This is James. I can start, and the panel can jump in, but I think the basic idea is that scarcity pricing is attempting to replicate the value that consumers place on a reliable electricity supply. And so to the extent that you get the market to reflect that, you also incentivize the types of behavior that you would expect to rationally occur from both supply and demand side participants to behave in a way to protect reliability at the cost that they value it. And so that's sort of the highest level premise of why scarcity pricing is important to reliability, because it sort of harmonizes the actions of all players in the market towards maintaining a reliable supply.
We can't hear you, Andy.
You can't hear me?
Oh, there we go.
I'd be interested if there's any stakeholder perspectives on that of the four presenters.
Yeah. Hey there. This is Chris Devin with Calpine. Thank you for the question, Vice Chair Campbell. I did want to try to address that one as well. So thanks for the opportunity. I think scarcity pricing is vital as we move into EDAM. I think our perspective is in conflict with what we heard about the ancillary service issue and with some of the other stakeholders that are, stating that, a more robust operating reserve demand curve type approach is not appropriate at this point. Calpine believes that it can be implemented across the region. It doesn't need to be linked to ancillary services. It could be something more akin to this, latent reserves or energy supply margin concept. And I think we would also highlight that as we move into these regional markets spreading across the West, there's going to be continued reliability events where scarcity exists not only in the EDAM, but perhaps in other areas outside of EDAM. With multiple regional markets, the scarcity pricing levels will be very important to signal supply to come to the areas that are necessary, not only with inside the EDAM footprint, but also between regional areas within the West and between the different regional markets and the day-ahead markets that are now developing, both with EDAM and Markets Plus likely to be operational in the coming years. Thank you.
Thanks. I did have something else, but I should pass it on to my colleagues. And if there's time, I have another comment.
Okay, thanks, Andy. And Anita, Rob, I didn't see whose hand was up. I blinked. I think it was at the same time. So Anita, you come first in the alphabet. So
okay. So I guess I want to kind of just round up my takeaway. So my takeaway from the four presentations, and again, I want to thank you guys. This is a really add to our presentations to hear more from stakeholders in our session. So thank you for that. It seems like the market power mitigation seems like, yeah, we can go ahead and move forward with that, notwithstanding that wait for everything. But it seems like there was a little more consensus around moving forward on the market power mitigation and less consensus around moving forward with the scarcity pricing, with the exception of Chris, your comments. And so I was trying to get my head around in terms of the IPP sector, is there something that is different in your sector than the LSCs?
Yeah, thank you, Member Decker. I think we just come from a different perspective, recalling the history of, the CAISO's efforts following the 2020 blackouts. And I think the MSC and the CAISO all worked through a significant process for that market readiness 2020 or summer readiness 2021 effort, and committed to doing both scarcity pricing and market power mitigation, or system level market power mitigation, as it was called then, hand in hand. And I think that, as our comments have tried to highlight, doing one without the other, we believe risks, potential reliability and suppressing prices during those scarce conditions when really the prices should be rising. So I think that's our key feedback, and why we may be situated a little differently from some of the other entities, but they could also speak for themselves as well.
So Chris, maybe just in follow-up. So is it that they have to be exactly the same timing, or like if one was 3 months difference just for implementation, like 3 months would be okay, but 6 to 10 months is not okay. I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of, recognizing these are pretty big things, and I hear we would really like to have more data from having some time in the EDM implementation. So I'm just trying to get a sense. I don't want to put you on the spot. I feel like I am, so sorry for that.
Oh, absolutely no problem at all. I mean, just yeah, shooting from the hip, I think the closer together they can be done and implemented would be better. I think that if we could avoid peak periods where there's mitigation applied and no scarcity pricing, or emergency only scarcity pricing as the current CAISO proposes to do. I think that would be my initial thinking. We could have scarcity pricing events, or I should say scarcity events in the winter or the summer, right? We saw that happen
Mhm.
in the Northwest in the winter, and we saw that happen in the summer. I think for reliability, the summer period is really important, and personally, I would say we should not delay some kind of more robust scarcity pricing proposal being implemented as we go through the summer months while we still have mitigation applied. Thanks.
All right. No, thank you. And I appreciate your sensitivity to the peak period. So good comment. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thanks, Anita. Rob, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Wagner. Let me start off by thanking the presentations and the presenters on the information. Really interesting to hear these perspectives. And as previously stated, it adds a multifaceted dimension than just reading comments. And I will say that even though they were different perspectives, there really was a lot of commonality in some of the issues. I didn't hear anyone said that we shouldn't be doing anything, that we should be dropping this approach and focusing elsewhere. And that this is an issue that should be addressed. And I think that it was interesting on, the thoughts on where we should go as far as next steps. And I'd like to start, if I can, with James, and then if the different presenters want to respond as well, that would be terrific. And James, even though we're talking the more recent history of pricing scarcity, I know that this has a much longer history and predates when I even came on the governing body. And it seems that over this long time frame that there's been a continual perception that this is needed to be done. And so I kind of want to get your feel for we're not there. And what are the biggest drivers or biggest reasons from your perspective? Is it just the timing? Is it more education to understand the best way to do this? Do we have a philosophical schism that we have a hard time bridging? When is that right time? There's some great arguments on stability. And then kind of to go with that is, do we feel really confident about where we are with resources that waiting doesn't increase risk of the need for when we need to get there if we do in fact move forward on pricing scarcity?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I would say that there's a lot of pressure to design for market design under scarce conditions, because it is when you have the most riding on good outcomes, right? Both from a commercial financial perspective, but also from a reliability perspective. And so I think a part of the underlying push and pull, why this is so hard to drag across the finish line, is because there's just a lot at stake, fundamentally. But on top of that, we presented a couple of interesting questions about, broadly about scarcity pricing and its relationship with resource adequacy and resource sufficiency, long-term capacity planning. which over the EDAM and WEIM footprint are handled differently by different BAs. Questions about the future looking like there may be more price responsive loads on the system. And so what is the relationship of scarcity pricing to that design? And then of course, getting down to the fundamentals of the design, the way that the Western interconnection is different from the way the Eastern markets have designed scarcity pricing makes it difficult to find sort of a good plug and play method. And so, to be honest, it just requires a huge amount of creativity, which we've seen in our working group series to come up with something that's agreeable across parties, is symmetric in outcomes and intent. And we're going to continue to do the work, put in the work to do that. And we expect stakeholders will be right there alongside us to do that.
James, thank you
James, I noticed Bonnie has.
Oh, go ahead, Ellie. Sorry.
Sorry, Rob. Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say Bonnie has her hand raised as well and may have something to add on this question.
Thanks very much. Yes, I'd like to respond to the question about the importance of scarcity pricing for reliability. And I don't think the LSE sponsoring group would argue that scarcity pricing has nothing to do with reliability or is unnecessary for reliability. But 2 points, we do have scarcity pricing mechanisms in place. And the issue is not so much, do we need to think about reforming it? We do. But the real issue is when, and do we guess at how this newly designed market is going to function and how the market dynamics are going to play out? Or do we wait long enough, maybe a year, to see how the market dynamics play out? In the meantime, there are reliability features built into the market, and those include, and in fact, the whole concept of the extended day-ahead market is to expand the geographic footprint of positioning resources in the day-ahead time frame to meet the anticipated needs in the operating day, the real-time time frame. And so that's sort of the essence of expanding the day-ahead market. But in addition, elements of the market include resource sufficiency evaluations, both in the day-ahead market and in the real-time market that require the participating balancing authority areas to come to the market with sufficient resources to meet their forecasted loads. So is scarcity pricing important? Yes, but it should be a scarcity pricing design that responds to and reflects the experience with the market operations. And in the meantime, we're not just walking the tightrope without a safety net. There are market elements specifically designed to support reliability. Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. And now that I can actually see hands raised, I see Kalia and Sybil also have their hands raised. I don't want to extinguish this conversation. I just want to put a note that we're like getting to be over time on our on this segment, and we still have public comment to go. But Kalia, why don't you? The governing body would like to hear responses from you all.
Of course, and I'll make my comment really quick. And I appreciate the questions, and I'll maybe expand additionally onto what Bonnie said. As a load serving entity outside of California, but also an entity that is implementing EDAM I can say that although EDM does build upon the framework of EIM, it introduces a lot of operational complexities and changes to the way that we interact in that market. And we are just entering market simulation, like literally today. So there's a lot of changes that we didn't quite anticipate, but are working through to better understand. And that's what's driving, I think, a lot of other entities like Pacific Corp and other folks that are implementing EDM is this complexity that we are experiencing from an operational perspective. It's not to say that this is not important. It absolutely is. There's just a lot to understand first, and we don't want to waste time on, we don't have the resources to waste time on initiatives. We want to make sure that we can focus on the right solutions based on our understanding. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And Sybil, I see your hand up as well.
Yeah, I'll be really brief. I just wanted to follow up that I think one thing that's been really challenging about this discussion is that, as James noted, we can't just cookie cutter something in from another market. And even when we're talking about scarcity, people have a certain association of that concept with the constructs that are used in other organized markets that cannot, in PGP's view, apply directly in our unique Western market constructs that we're developing. And so just thinking about when we're moving forward, when I say scarcity, I mean addressing performance during tight system conditions, which is something broader and may need to be defined differently than a narrower and different definition that is translated directly from other markets. So we do support some sort of scarcity pricing improvement happening now. It's just not using that same definition that's used elsewhere because we don't believe that it translates in our unique market. Thank you.
Thanks, Sybil. And thanks again to presenters and the follow-up questions. Allie, James, is there anything else before I turn to public comment?
There's not. Go ahead and turn to public comment. Thank you.
Okay, Stacy, can you instruct virtual attendees on how to enter the comment queue, please?
Absolutely. As a reminder, feel free to place yourself in the queue by utilizing the raised hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host request to unmute. You will be unmuted upon approving this request. And please remember to state your name and affiliation. We do have 3 hands raised. For the first person.
Hello, my name's Torsten Keeper with BAMX. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I just have a question for the Calpine representative, if I may. My understanding from the Calpine slides is that one of the major goals for changes to the scarcity pricing structure is to make it so that prices rise smoothly ahead of a scarcity event instead of peaking sharply or even not reflecting scarcity at all. And my understanding is that the 3 proposals from the September straw proposal were intended specifically to address the issues with prices rising over time or not even reflecting scarcity, things along with the lines of triggering scarcity pricing when arming load. So if I may, I'm just curious to understand why those proposals are not sufficient. Thank you.
So I appreciate wanting to ask a question of the panelist. This portion is more for public comment. So if you want to take that up with Chris from Calpine separately, or maybe transform your question into a comment that is something along the lines that we should evaluate or consider.
Sure. I guess in the form of a comment, I would just encourage us to consider whether the items proposed in the existing straw proposal and issue paper could themselves alleviate some of the issues around prices and scarcity. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Stacy, if you could queue up the next commenter.
Of course, and please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the governing body. My name is Dan Williams with the Energy Authority. I know we're running short on time. I just have a very brief comment to add in from our perspective as entities that transact across the West. We provide wholesale market services to both supply and demand interests, and we don't view higher or lower prices as being good or bad in abstract, but instead view them as a key part of policies that over time can minimize the all-in cost of serving demand by giving us accurate prices that are important to both our short-term markets and our forward markets. In reading through some of the materials for today, I wanted to note that we agree with CISA's comment that the WEC soft offer cap should really put a new emphasis on the need to address scarcity pricing in CAISO's markets. In our experience, the ability for CAISO's markets to reflect the value entities outside of CAISO place on firm energy has had a major impact on market results during the outlier events that the West has experienced in recent years. And this is also taking on increasing importance as markets expand in the West. And shortly, in addition to bilateral market competition, entities within the CAISO and within the EDAM areas will be competing with other markets for uncommitted supply at their interties. And we believe that it's critical that the CAISO and stakeholders prioritize whether you want to call it scarcity pricing or call it intertie pricing, something that would take up the issue of different markets valuing supply differently. And when we get in tight supply conditions, needing to have accurate and orderly price formation so that uncommitted supply can flow where it needs to during those times, which also goes towards the questions around reliability. So those are the brief comments we had. Look forward to participating further in the initiative as it goes forward.
Thank you, Dan. I see two more hands up in the attendee list, and I also see a hand up from Lindsay Schleckaway. Let's finish off those in the attendees list. Stacy, can you queue up the next commenter, please?
Absolutely. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, members of the governing body, especially Member Kanzioka, with whom I had the pleasure of serving at WEC and CAISO Management. I'm Brian Thaker, Vice President of Regulatory and Market Affairs at Middle River Power. MRP owns and operates a 2 gigawatt fleet of thermal and battery energy storage resources within the CAISO's footprint and manages a similar sized portfolio in PJM's footprint. Thank you for this opportunity to provide these brief comments. Thank you also for this format in which stakeholders can present their perspectives on issues directly to the governing body. MRP wishes to express its support for the CAISO's November 2025 reconfirmation of its intent to move forward with scarcity pricing and market power mitigation in a balanced and parallel way, not in series, its intent when it first launched this initiative back in June 2022. While some market participants have asserted that the substantial resource build-out since 2020 makes it unlikely that scarcity pricing will be triggered or needed in the near future, that same build-out has also reduced the potential to exercise market power. Consequently, the ISO's recent rededication to move forward with these modifications in a parallel, thoughtful, and balanced way remains the appropriate way to address these issues. I can't repeat Calpine's comments, but MRP supports them. In sum, we support the CAISO's proposal to implement these mechanisms at the same time, and we oppose waiting to continue developing a comprehensive scarcity pricing proposal until well after EDAM is implemented. Thank you for the opportunity to provide these remarks.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the comments. And Stacy, can you queue up the next attendee for public comment?
Yes, and we have our last hand raised. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Hi, my name is Catherine Stockton from the Energy Division at the CPUC. I just wanted to thank CAISO for allowing so many speakers on behalf of LOAD today. I think, because CAISO doesn't have any kind of intervener compensation, it's a lot harder for ratepayer advocates to participate. So I just want to thank you on that point. And then I just want to echo what the LSC, the California LSCs stated that, we may not, it could turn out that with the design of EDAM and all the DAME enhancements that, we have enough capacity products in the new design that scarcity pricing might not be needed. And the existing scarcity pricing built into DAME could be enough to meet the needs of the market. So thanks so much.
Thank you, and appreciate your participation and speaking up. Stacy, our last public comment is in the panelist group. It's Lindsay Schleckaway. Can you, I don't know if Lindsay, if you're able to, why don't you go ahead and provide your comment?
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming you can hear me. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the Western Energy Markets governing body. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Lindsay Schluckaway, and I'm here on behalf of NV Energy to share our perspective on the price formation enhancements. At this time, we believe the CAISO should focus its efforts on an area that is further along in the design, the market power mitigation framework, and simple enhancements to scarcity pricing that were scoped in this draw proposal. The market is entering a major transformation in the market footprint, with new participants joining, others potentially exiting, and several foundational market designs shifting simultaneously. These changes will materially affect the market dynamics. This environment makes it especially challenging for stakeholders to contemplate a comprehensive new scarcity pricing framework without the benefit of market performance data from the new day-ahead market design. Simply put, we cannot effectively assess the consequences of another large-scale change while we are still waiting to see how the most recent reforms actually perform. NV Energy believes strongly that the comprehensive scarcity pricing design should be done right the first time. If we move ahead prematurely without real performance data to inform decisions, we risk creating a design that must later be continuously revised. This is not in the best interest of the market, consumers, or system reliability. For these reasons, NV Energy supports the recommendation voiced by multiple stakeholders to delay this initiative. A short pause now, allowing market data to accumulate and other major efforts to stabilize will lead to better decisions and a more durable market design. Thank you for allowing us the time to provide our perspective.
Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate the comment. Stacy, can you check to see if there's anybody else? I don't see any other hands raised, but if anybody else wants to make public comment, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'll give it a brief moment. Right now, we do not have any other hands raised.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the robust discussion and engagement and the additional public comment. We need to move on to our next item, which is the, let's see, EDAM onboarding and the implementation update. This is the good and exciting news about how things are going. I'd like to introduce Khaled Abdul Rahman. He's the Vice President and Chief Information and Technology Officer, and generally a wizard. You and your team are amazing. So I'll turn it over to you for the presentation, and thank you for your patience in getting to your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wagner. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the governing body and our respective audience. Yes, it's my pleasure actually to present for you a brief summary of what's happening in the front of onboarding of the EDAM. And we have two EDAM entities that we are onboarding for the 2026. Pacific Corp is the first one, and Portland General Electric is the second EDAM entity for the 2026. In terms of where we are today, we have actually finished with Pacific Corp. We finished our market simulation, the structured and unstructured testing that we did with Pacific Corp staff. And now we are in the parallel operation. Parallel operation started February 2nd and is going to last till end of April. Typically, as probably you're used to the WEM onboarding, that parallel operation is about 2 months period. We decided that for the EDAM, since this is a new, it's not only the onboarding itself, but also there is a lot of development that are happening along with onboarding of these entities. So we extended the parallel operation to be 3 months instead of 2 months. That will give us more time to work on any issues that are identified during the extended period of time for the parallel operation. The parallel operation for Pacific Corp is going to extend till end of April, and our go live is May 1st. We are on track for meeting the deadlines that we are in front of us. There is a lot of challenges, of course, that I'm going to be talking about it in the next slides, but the things are looking really very promising in terms of meeting our deadlines. I want to say thank you for our partner in Pacific Corp staff that are really working with us on a daily basis and trying to identify any issues. We are using this opportunity of the onboarding to beef up our training for the following EDAM entities. We are identifying issues and difference, like one of the commentators was saying the difference in the processes between real time and day ahead. So we are making note of that, and we are making it more explicit in our training material and our questions and answers or lesson learned for the new implementation. I'm also happy to declare that we are currently in market simulation for Portland General. Those are operating in two different environments and systems at the California ISO. So Portland General started the structured and unstructured. During this phase, we're going to be testing all of the interfaces, making sure the data flows, making sure that the registration in the master file and reference data is all configured correctly. And we will be performing explicitly structured scenarios and looking at the results of that. Our intention for the Portland General onboarding for Go Live is going to be October 1st of 2026. Next slide, please. So the structure of the parallel operation for Pacific Corp, we divided into 3 phases. And and each phase is not like equal time, but we move from one phase to the other, depending on what we are seeing and the results that we are seeing in the testing, as well as the readiness of our teams. The first phase is focused more on the day ahead only between running Pacific Corp and CAISO together, but we are limiting the economic transfer between these areas. And that was complete. And we moved into the phase 2, which will still focus on the day ahead run, but it will allow for economic transfer. And that was starting February 18. We were able to open the transfer between Pacific Corp and California ISO. I just want to note that we always allow the transfer between PAC East and PAC West. That's always allowed in all of the phases. The last phase, which we are targeting probably mid-March, is to also focus not only on the day ahead, but also rolling those results out to the real-time system, which is the WEM market. So the phase 3 will be the full end-to-end from the day ahead, moving into the real time and watching how the system and the resources and the market results will perform. I talked about the extension into April because we felt like we have to give more time for the parallel operation due to the many features and new products that we are introducing. Is not only the onboarding activities. There's quite a bit to test and to make sure that it's working as designed. We have daily stand-ups between the California and Pacific Corp team to talk about the market solution quality. We're generating reports. Our analysis team, Guillermo and his team, they are spending a lot of time actually trying to generate the report on the same day. After we run the day ahead, we send those reports to Pacific Corp, and we are talking about the market solution quality in general in an aggregate fashion. And that helped us to fine-tune things and listen learned by some of the findings actually related to software defects that allows us to fix them. Some of it is more of a processes fine-tuning. Some of it is more of a configuration that we had to revisit and tune. The first settlement statement we published in February 5th, for trading day February 5th. We published that. It has all of the charge codes. I want to maybe note that we are still facing some challenges in terms of the accuracy of those charge codes. And I would like to thank both, again, Pacific Corp and the CAISO staff for spending a lot of time trying to find all of these abnormalities that we are seeing in the statements. And right now, I'm pleased to say that the software or the codes that are necessary to implement those changes is being tested as we speak. And hopefully this will reflect in a more accurate and more cleaner settlement statement as we go forward. We have decided that we want to deal with the parallel operation, not only to test the functionality and the systems, but we want to test our processes in terms of our customer service engagement with our other stakeholders and the reach out that we do for our different stakeholders and different people who are interested in the market. So we engaged a very active plan that involved so many of our customers. We have also spent a lot of time on different workshops, forums to support all types of customers, whether they are traders or load-serving entities or merchants or grid operation entities. So we have spent a lot of we attempted to try to reach out to the different types of customers to answer questions for them. Lastly, the Portland General, I think it is a little bit early to report on the market simulation. We just started actually literally yesterday. And we're going to be reporting as we go, as we move forward, how that is going as well. Next slide. In terms of the challenges, I mentioned about some of the challenges related to the software, but there is also requirements that came a little bit late in terms of the project schedule, and we all know that was not, it was unavoidable. That's allowed us actually it gives us, while we are working those issues, we were able to still develop quite a bit of the product. And as these issues started to conclude, we were ready to take the requirement or write the requirements and then started to implement it. The additional request also we received related to additional reports and transparency of some of the results of the market that may be helpful for some stakeholders to see. So we added those requirements and we expanded the scope of the project. There is quite a bit of issues that we identified that is different between running in the WEIM compared with how you want to participate in the day-ahead market. And in particular, I want to be more specific, like the real-time market is using the concept of a base schedule that is needed to be submitted. This concept is not in the day-ahead market. Instead, you have your economic bids and self-scheduling. So that required additional information and training, and it becomes a lesson learned that we want to discuss with other EDAM entities. There is also the concept or the complexity of the multi-state generator, the MSG units, combined cycle units, how they are initial conditions are calculated in the day ahead for the beginning of the optimization compared to how we are running it today in the WEIM. That was also there was a learning curve that needed to be crossed. The settlement code, charge code, and the defect fixes for the charge code, all of that has been still, as I would consider it, still is a challenge that we would like to produce a clean settlement, not only from a California ISO. We're working with our partner at Pacific Corp to have a clean settlement all the way to with including the sub-allocation to the Pacific Corp transmission customers. So next slide, please. Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any question.
Thank you, Khaled. That was a lot. There's clearly a lot of things going on. I'd like to open it up to the governing body for questions. Rob, I saw your hand up earlier. Take it away.
Actually, my hand up earlier was actually inadvertent, but I actually intended to do this. Khaled, thank you for this update. As Rebecca just noted, very comprehensive. You covered a lot of ground and a lot of the challenges. And what I wanted to ask about that you didn't touch on is we all know PacifiCorp has two balancing authorities. And from your perspective and from the CAISO staff perspective, has it been closer to working with, a single company and a single BA, or two different companies and two different BAs? How much complexity did the two different BAs have in this first go live process?
Yeah, it is. I don't want to say it is complicated, but it is two balancing areas that we are onboarding at the same time. So that's helpful because it's using the same timeline, the same company is providing the data. So to us, it will look like as if from a mechanics point of view, it is like one entity that we are onboarding, regardless of the number of balancing area. The volume of the data, of course, is bigger. What is helping us is that we have a direct transfer between PAC East and PAC West. So that is helping stabilizing the results and making sure that both of those balancing areas have the resources that they need in order to participate in the market as well as stabilize the results.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the governing body? Okay, I'm not seeing any. We need to turn to public comment. Stacy, may you will you please queue up instructions for virtual attendees on how to make public comment?
Absolutely. As a reminder, feel free to place yourself in the queue by utilizing the raised hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host request to unmute. You will be unmuted upon approving this request. Please remember to state your name and affiliation. We do not have any hands raised.
Thank you. And thank you to Khaled and your team. You're doing great work. Keep it up. I know the next couple of months you have a lot going, but we really appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time to keep us informed on how it's going.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next up, we'll hear, I have Anna McKenna to do introductions. But this is our WEIM benefits and markets update. Anna McKenna, are you here to make the introduction?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Wagner.
Great.
I am here. It'll be a brief introduction because Guillermo needs no introduction, but I do have the pleasure of introducing Guillermo Bautista. He's the Director of Market Performance and Advanced Analytics, and we'll be informing you today about our latest WEIM benefits and updates in the markets as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Guillermo.
Thank you, Anna, for the introduction. Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, members of the governing body. It's my pleasure to be here again to report on the quarterly benefits for the fourth quarter of 2025. Next slide, please. For the fourth quarter of 2025, the market saw a total benefits of $415.6 million, and that accrue across all the balancing areas for the 3-month period. The real-time market is inherently very dynamic, based on the system conditions and the economics of the market footprint. These dynamics are going to dictate the transfers, the generation displacement that may take place, which in the end is going to determine the level of benefits that are accrued for each balancing area. There are 3 main drivers for the level of benefits that we have seen, including the wider footprint that we have consisting of 23 balancing areas, which allows for this fuel, geographic, and economic diversity. The transfers are, with no doubt, the main driver connecting all these dots, and which allows to move power from any place of the system to where it's needed the most. I want to also highlight a note for this fourth quarter. You may have noticed that we took additional time to report on the fourth quarter of the benefits for this year, because as the regular process that we have, we validate the estimates that we have, we cross-check the numbers with some participants' own estimates, and as a result of that, we found that there would be 2 enhancements that we pursue for this last quarter. And this is to capture the evolution of the market, the evolution of the generation mix that we have currently in the real-time market. One of those enhancements has to do with better modeling the variable energy resources in the counterfactual estimation. And the second enhancement is related to better modeling of storage resources. When we initially developed the methodology, storage resources were not a thing in the market. As we have integrated more and more of those resources, they are more meaningful that potentially can impact the market solution. Effectively, with this enhancement, we have better accounted for how storage resources can be dispatched in the counterfactual to ensure that any counterfactual dispatch is going to be reflective of reality by limiting how much they can be dispatched based on the available state of charge. With that, we are aligning much better the counterfactual dispatch to what we actually do in the real-time market. And moving forward, we're going to rely on this enhanced methodology to estimate future benefits for the real time. Next slide, please. With the fourth quarter of over $400 million, the total cumulative benefits that we have so far since the inception of the Western Energy Balance Market is about $8.24 billion. This is a good testament of the effectiveness of the centralized market that we run as part of the Western Energy Balance Market to be able to identify all the economic opportunities realized through the transfers. The level of benefits that we have observed for the fourth quarter are within the typical ranges that we have seen for the benefits in the last 3 years since we implemented the last round of onboarding entities to the real-time market. Next slide, please. With no doubt, the main driver, the enabler of this level of benefits is the transfers. We have 23 balancing areas. There are transfer capabilities among all of them. The left-hand side illustration is a snapshot of the dynamics, the different transfers that realized in the fourth quarter of 2025. The left-hand side of the plot is the areas where the transfer is coming from. The right-hand side is the balancing area where the transfer is going into. The stream connecting these two sides of the plot is no more than the transfer realized between these balancing areas, and the thickness of that stream stands for the volume of the transfers. It's a busy plot, and that actually is indeed a reflection of how many transfers permutations can exist in the market and how the real-time market is able to identify every single possibility of economic transfers among all the possible permutations that exist by running this centralized market. On the right-hand side, we have a total volume of the transfers organized by quarter of the year and also by the direction, imports or exports, that can give you a sense through the year which areas tend to import or export power through the real-time market. Next slide, please. This is also a typical illustration that we want to highlight and shows the evolution of the real-time market as we have integrated more and more balancing areas to the market footprint. Starting with Pacific Corporation, the level of transfers were very modest, and we have increased to a very healthy and robust level of transfers over time after we have incorporated all the 23 balancing areas into the market. In the upper part, there is a legend that identifies the different balancing areas that join the EIM market over time. And this is a good testament of how steady, how sustainable the Western energy imbalance market has been in terms of realizing the transfers in the market footprint. Next slide, please. Moving on to prices. Given the time of the year, it is a modest condition system that we face during the winter time frame. Accordingly, the prices are going to be mild, moderate, and they continue to be as of January 2026. These are prices that tend to be typically the lowest of the year. For this winter, they actually were lower than the last winter. And the other reference that we put here is the bilateral prices. These are external prices. And for this quarter, interesting enough, they track relatively close to the Western energy imbalance market. Next slide, please. Lastly, this is a more granular breakdown of the prices. It's organized by month of the quarter, by each balancing area. And the prices are in the very healthy range of $30 on average. We can see that as we enter deeper into the winter, prices in December were more moderate. And interesting enough, also the bilateral prices, the three reference hubs that we put, that is the COB, the Mid-C, and the Palo Verde hub prices, tend to track pretty close to the real-time prices. The other factor that you may notice in this breakdown is that there are some price separations among the different balancing areas that happens to be because of congestion, either congestion realized through the transfers or actual transmission congestion on internal constraints. That completes my briefing. I will be very happy to take on any comments, questions you may have.
Thank you, Guillermo. I'll open it up to governing body questions. And Anita?
Guillermo, I just want to say thank you so much for doing the outlook of the whole year to see the benefits there. So I just really appreciate the addition of that into the slide deck.
Thank you.
No other hands? Nobody else from the governing body? Okay, we'll turn it to public comment. Stacy, can you open or instruct the virtual attendees how to enter the comment queue? Not like they haven't heard us tell them 20,000 times today, it feels like. We'll go ahead and take the public comment.
As a reminder, feel free to place yourself in the queue by utilizing the raised hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host request to unmute. You will be unmuted upon approving this request. Please remember to state your name and affiliation. We do not have any hands raised.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Guillermo. Always appreciate the presentations and the perspective, and I love that it's in color. For being a visual person, this helps me a lot. Thanks for the work on that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Next agenda item is briefing on upcoming policy hot topics. How could there be more? I will invite Becky Robinson, Director of Market Policy and Development, to give us a verbal update.
Good afternoon, Chair Wagner, Vice Chair Campbell, and members of the governing body. It is my pleasure to provide you with our policy updates and hot topics today. There are two items I would like to flag for you. The first is our financial planning initiative, which has a touch point to the regional organization for Western Energy. Specifically, the February 5th issue paper and straw proposal that we published proposes a market rate starting in 2028 to recover startup funding for the regional organization for Western Energy, among other things in that proposal as well. But that's a particular item I wanted to flag for you. And while we are considering comments and intend to iterate on the policy proposal in our usual way, I do want to flag that this, at the next governing body meeting in April, at the end of April, this tariff amendment would be coming to the governing body for decision at that time. The second item I wanted to flag for you relates to a topic that's getting a lot of airtime nationally these days, that is large loads. So at the end of January, the ISO published a paper on large load interconnection and energization, and this largely focused on considerations for integrating large loads into the ISO BA. For instance, things like transmission planning considerations. I'm flagging this item for you, the governing body, though, because the large loads issues touches on these and other fronts. Yes, interconnection and planning, and also potentially providing flexibility to the market when needed. So through our market policy initiative on demand and distributed energy market integration, we will be exploring this aspect of large loads, namely a potential source of flexibility across the market footprint. So among other topics, our upcoming policy paper will outline both supply side and demand side participation pathways and seek stakeholder feedback on what refinements to current approaches may be needed. The intent is to create a set of participation options that accommodate a range of capabilities and business models so that any large load that chooses to participate flexibly in the market has a clear and appropriate pathway to do so. This engagement will help ensure that large loads can participate in ISO markets in practical, economically efficient ways that deliver reliability and system value. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Thanks, Becky. Questions from the governing body? Andy?
Chair Wagner, can I ask a question about a different item that's covered in the informational materials, other initiatives?
Sure. Is Becky the right person? Are you directing it to the right person? Okay.
She'll let us know. Just in terms of other policy initiatives, so I know there's one initiative that's focused on the EDAM congestion revenue allocation topic, and there's another initiative focused on congestion revenue rights. Those are described in that material, kind of the status of those. And I recall in the roadmap process, there were some stakeholders that were looking for a kind of coordination, if not consolidation of those two. So I wonder if you could just briefly describe kind of the CAISO's approach to those initiatives, keeping them separate, and kind of what sort of sort of coordination or kind of cross-pollination there might be, given that they kind of potentially touch on similar issues?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So yes, those are, we are keeping those as two separate initiatives for now, but as you highlight, there will be an important cross-pollination between those two items as they both deal with congestion revenue, and ultimately are both dealing with congestion revenue that the new and expanded day-ahead market is going to collect as a whole from the day-ahead market. EDM congestion revenue allocation deals with the how do you divide that pool of congestion revenues that the market collects between the BAs participating in the day-ahead market. And then the congestion revenue rights enhancements initiative then deals with, for the ISO BA, where we have congestion revenue rights as the means to sub-allocate, if you will, those congestion revenues to market participants. What is the rules and process around how that those structures work? So we are keeping them separate as we see sort of key distinct questions being addressed in each, and with potentially different audiences, right? Recognizing that first there is an audience that is interested in both. But we are taking steps to make sure that that the efforts on both fronts are coordinated. And so, for instance, while each item may have a different point person on the policy from the market policy team, we do have staff that are participating in both to make sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, and so that we're incorporating the learnings and from the stakeholder conversations in both initiatives. Additionally, I think there may be topics as we sort of progress further into each of those initiatives. There may be topics that where they are, that are of interest to both audiences, and where we may sort of schedule a stakeholder meeting that is specifically, cross-listed across both initiatives in order to flag that both audiences should attend and sort of incorporate into the record of both individual proceedings. And of course, happy to reevaluate things as if needed, if warranted, as the conversations continue and we get more into potential solutions. But for now, that's we are keeping them separate, but trying to make sure that we're coordinating well across both. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Becky? Okay, we'll open it up for public comment. Stacy, can you instruct the virtual attendees on how to do that again?
Absolutely. As a reminder, feel free to place yourself in the question queue by utilizing the raised hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host request to unmute. You will be unmuted upon approving this request. Please remember to state your name and affiliation. We do not have any raised hands.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 10, which is informational report. Member Campbell kind of jumped the gun and asked his question already, but I'd like to open it up to the rest of the governing body if you have any other questions on the informational reports that were provided. Okay, seeing none. We'll open it up again for public comment on the informational reports.
Would you like me to give the instructions again?
Go ahead and let's start our last round. So yeah, please.
Just in case. Yes, please feel free to place yourself in the question queue by utilizing the raised hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. When it's your turn to be unmuted, a pop-up message will appear prompting you to approve the host request to unmute. You will be unmuted upon approving this request. Please remember to state your name and affiliation.
Right.
We do not have any raised hands.
Excellent. Thank you. Final agenda item is a request for any future agenda items from the governing body. Okay, seeing none, thank you all, and thank you to all the presenters and everyone for their time and attendance today. A lot of material covered, and we'll be back tomorrow with a joint meeting with the ISO Board of Governors. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Rebecca. Terrific job.
Sure, everyone. All the best.
That concludes our conference. You may now disconnect.